Hey, and welcome to the ProtoPod, the podcast for engineers, innovators, entrepreneurs, and trailblazers shaping the future. I'm your host, Jordan Rose. Today, I'm excited to chat with Colin Monks of Intelligent Imaging Innovations, the co-founder and co-president. Intelligent Imaging was founded in 1994 by a group of scientists with diverse research backgrounds, including cell biology, immunology, and neuroscience. They commercialize, develop, and manufacture a portfolio of fluorescent microscope systems and devices alongside software designed for biomedical research applications. Let's get into the episode. Hey, Colin, welcome into the podcast. I'm really excited to interview you today. I was reading the profile for 3i's, so Intelligent Imaging Innovations, and I can't help but notice a lot of similarities to what you guys provide to your customers in the science and research industry, and what we provide our customers. So I think there'll be a lot of alignment here, and I'm super excited to chat. Just so the audience knows a little bit more about your business, can you give us a rundown of how your company that you co-founded, 3i, got started?
Sure. So I was a researcher at National Jewish Immunology Institute in Denver, Colorado, and I was working on how T cells to B cells, and it turned into a problem of sort of 3D space and time, because T cells and B cells are both 3D objects,
Okay.
and they interact in time. And so we had developed in the lab I was working in, who is Dr. Abraham Kupfer, who was a co-founder of 3i, a microscope that could take 3D pictures, which was novel at the time.
Okay.
And we quickly ran into the problem that we needed to do 3D analysis of lots and lots of T cells touching lots and lots of B cells to try to figure out what molecules actually interacted to cause a specific immune event. And that was a lot of manual work,
Yep.
A lot of marking in 3D, which wasn't particularly easy or possible then.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to a high school friend, another co-founder, Dr. Carl Kilborn, who was working on his PhD in computational neuroscience.
Okay.
And I was a engineer and a physicist before I was a biologist, but I was never a computer scientist.
Yep.
And I had read about a technology called neural networks, and
Yes.
I knew Carl had been playing with those as a graduate student in UC Irvine. And so I said, hey, I bet you could solve this problem for me. And Carl looked at it and went, well, that's really novel and hard, and no one's done this before, but Carl's never shied away from hard problems. So he decided to join forces with us to try to solve this problem. And interestingly, in 1995, there was no money to do computer science and biology at all. And the only way to fund it was a mechanism called a Small Business Research Innovation Grant.
Okay.
And in order to do that, you needed a small business. So we incorporated to solve this problem, which is now become a problem called deep learning. That term hasn't been invented yet.
Mm-hmm.
And Carl wrote some very clever code that began to solve this problem, and we wrote a grant, and we lost. However, in the grant, we disclosed that we could make microscopes that took pictures of 3D cells, and people went, I'd like to do that. So we sort of became a microscope company before we became a neural net analytical company. So we spent many years making better and better and better microscopes that could take 3D pictures of living cells, and that's sort of how we got started.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I read that you were capturing 4D images, and I was like, is that what that means? Does that mean time as a dimension as well? So that's very interesting to know that that's where that came from. You alluded to the fact that not only are you guys a microscope company, but you also are involved with neural networks. Is that still the case?
Yeah, that's still the case. That's sort of the underlying questions we've tried to answer, which are basically taking the 3D changing biology and turning them into numbers that you
Yep.
can use to test models. That hasn't really changed. That's
Mm-hmm.
been a central mission, and the way to do, really the way to access that kind of analysis has changed over time.
Mm-hmm.
But we still are doing machine learning and neural nets as part of this, but we also use traditional image processing models and traditional analysis as well. And it's kind of wandered all over a variety of techniques in cell biology. Basically, the idea though is you turn movies into numbers
Yeah.
and see what biological models work out.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. I'm interested to know about the applications for this technology. So obviously, you guys are a developer and a manufacturer of microscopes that have this, neural network software tied to it to turn the cell movement into numbers, as you've so eloquently put. What are some of the most exciting applications that you've seen your technology used to date?
Oh wow, we have many.
Yeah.
In broad strokes,
Hmm.
drug development,
Okay.
fundamental biology, in disease and cancer, in
Yep.
immunology, neuroscience, um, how how learning causes the brain to change.
Oh wow.
We use it in plant biology.
Okay.
We've used it in some in I'd even call it nano manufacturing, where you could
Okay.
actually do 3D printing at the level of at the scale of cell biology. Um, Drug discovery, some materials analysis. It's
Oh wow. It's
really
incredibly broad.
been the gambit of things you can do with a microscope.
Yeah. So I mentioned off the top that I do see a lot of similarities in what 3i does for your customers and what we do for ours, specifically with respect to this full turn or turnkey solution. So you
Mm.
guys are providing not only the equipment, the hardware, but also the brains behind it. I know for us, what that means, solving the pain for our customer is the pain of, having to coordinate through a bunch of different vendors and making sure things line up when they're executing their project. I wonder what that looks like for your customers. What pain are you solving for them? Being able to provide them, kind of on a silver platter, a solution that will allow them to do, any type of amazing experimentation and science.
Yeah, I think maybe an easy way to look at our company is we take the cutting edge innovations of, say, biophysics labs,
Hmm.
and we put them in a form that a biology lab can use.
Okay.
So, as a biologist, you really can't be an engineer,
Yep.
a biophysicist, a
Yep.
laser scientist, a software
Mm,
developer. There are labs that do that, but then that winds up being their whole focus, and they don't really
absolutely.
do biology. They don't go cure disease or figure out how the brain works or do plant science. They're basically engineers. So what we do is we take and understand that newest cutting edge biophysics, and we productize it so
Yep.
that really a biologist with a biological understanding and a biological question can take full advantage of the technique.
Yeah.
And uh, this is also why rapid prototyping is really important for us,
Mm,
because these individual um, biological problems often take some customization.
yep.
And that customization has to be done both quickly and kind of durably in a way that, you guys have been able to really help us out with.
Yeah.
So I think the main takeaway is that, in productizing the right technology, you can bring an advanced biological lab that has the funding and the vision, to doing the science without having to do the engineering.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's making it more accessible without the engineering, I guess the physics that would be required in order to analyze whatever data they were collecting. I do appreciate the compliment. That is something that we take a lot of pride in, and it definitely is a perfectly suitable application. What we do with high velocity mass custom manufacturing, and in getting you moving on those projects fairly quickly that could be niche, so you can solve the needs of your customer. I do wonder. I know that your company is now spread over multiple countries. You're headquartered in Denver. I was curious as your company is expanded internationally, what if any sort of challenges you've had to overcome in terms of making sure that that mission that you've described, that the bringing accessible access to data for your customers based on their research. I wonder how has that translated as you've grown? Has there been any challenges with that? Anything that you could?
A lot. I mean, the
Yeah,
reason we are an international company is science is international. I think
absolutely.
our third sale was in Sweden.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so that put us internationally pretty quickly. But I think you alluded to why it had to be that way. We have to have scientific expertise in both sales and support
Yeah.
for our customers, kind of in the time zone they live.
Yeah.
Uh,
Totally.
so we have significant customer bases in Asia, in Europe, in Australia, um, and in the Americas. And a single team can't really service, you know,
Yeah.
somebody in Shanghai and then end the day with somebody in Berlin.
Yeah.
So that's really been why we became international so quickly, and it pretty much exactly tracks with the national investment into science of these different places.
Yeah, so it sounds to me like you guys, put your customers at the absolute forefront, making sure that you have the infrastructure to support them and service their equipment that they've purchased. What is your culture like that influences that focus on your customers and serving them?
Yeah, our company's a little bit unusual.
Same
We
here.
we're mostly PhD scientists and engineers.
Yeah.
Administration and infrastructure of the company is extremely light
Yeah.
in terms of headcount. I'd say the culture's the one that works pretty hard,
Yep.
remains somewhat casual and small.
Hmm.
People wear a lot of different hats.
Yep.
There are not a lot of silos where, say, there isn't an R&D team that never meets a customer, or a support team that never meets an engineer or a scientist, or someone within sales. So yeah, I would say that's our culture.
Yeah, I can see a lot of similarities there. We have a very flat hierarchy, and pretty much everybody is accessible to whoever they need to. Things seem to run a lot better that way. I wonder, you've been, obviously, I believe 1994 is when you founded 3i. I wonder now, you're 30 years into this. What keeps you fulfilled in your mission these days? Is it still the same as when you started it way back
Yeah,
in '94?
I don't think the mission has changed. There's been a few things that are very cool about being around this long.
Mhm.
First of all, is the watching the growth of our customer base. We've
Mm.
had multiple customers go from kind of starting scientists into senior faculty, Hughes
Oh,
fellows,
wow.
department chairs, members of the National Academy, and even Nobel laureates. So
Wow.
we've watched that arc of some people we invested time in, and they invested time and money with us, and watched their mutual careers blossom. We've watched labs develop COVID treatments, for like, truly impactful things or drugs that went to market.
Yeah.
Those are exciting things to see. And then the other thing is the technology. Microscopy from the outside might seem pretty static, but I'd actually say it's the fastest moving field of engineering I know about.
Interesting.
Literally every little innovation in manufacturing, laser science, computer science, material science, optics we use. So the instruments we build today are beyond when I founded the companies, my imagination. They're literally are unimaginable from 30 years back or even 20 years back. So the pace of innovations really, I'd say, keeps it exciting.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I wonder. So you've got a lot more tools in your toolbox now, for lack of a better term. Has there been challenges with that in a rapidly innovating industry where technology is changing? Yeah, can you describe some of them?
Well, I mean, you solve one engineering problem, and then 10 years from then it may become irrelevant, or
Yeah.
the technique might lose, let's say, fashion in the market. Like the biologists have innovated a different direction, and what you produced just isn't used anymore. So we've watched techniques go from red hot to never done again. We have to be pretty careful where we do our innovation, that we don't pick a dud,
Yep,
because we're a
absolutely.
huge company, and so you can't spend a long time developing an instrument and then finding out that instrument's a dead end is a difficult thing to
Yeah,
watch happen.
yeah, it's a risk every time you take on a new type of product. If the technology changes so quick, that it's moot at the time that
Right.
it's complete. That's definitely a problem. How do you guys stay on top of it? Is it really through? Obviously, you're closely tied. This definitely is a passion. I can tell for you guys. Is that how you guys stay on top of it? Like you're just
Yeah,
so deeply
and our
entrenched.
customers are, also our friends,
There you go.
and
Yeah.
they're in a highly competitive environment of academic science
Yeah.
or pharmaceutical science or whatever. And so, there's a nice, constant feedback. They tell us what they need. We tell them what we can do. And so I'd say staying on top of the innovations is always kind of a constant struggle, but the customer base helps a lot. We don't have to be ahead of them. We have to be kind of where they are. In fact, getting too far ahead of them is also a way to not succeed. If you make a
Absolutely.
technology that won't be adopted for 25 years, that's also not commercially successful. So you have to stay kind of in fashion.
Yeah, that's it's really fascinating to hear about that. Like, and I can't even imagine, especially given the wide breadth of sub industries, I guess, that you serve, that would be a challenge, and something that you're always trying to keep on top of. I wonder, can you maybe give us another example of a specific example? You talked about getting fulfillment through kind of seeing your customers grow, becoming a Nobel laureate, or solving a big challenge in science. Is there any one that sticks out from you in your career that you would say is, what, that's the one I'm most proud of, that we could help with that?
Wow, that's a tough one. But we're proud of a lot of people,
Yeah.
and we've seen people make big investments and big risks with us, and then wind up succeeding. Uh, I don't know. There's a one Nobel laureate that springs to mind. Is the story of Roger Chen,
Okay.
who he developed a significant tool, many actually, that we use today. One of the first one he developed was a calcium dye called Fura 2, and then later he helped develop green fluorescent protein, which is how we genetically encode things that we can look at that will glow under the microscope. And he started as a customer in a fairly junior way in UCSD, and evolved into a titan of science. Sadly, he's no longer with us. But
Oh, wow.
that's a neat story of a customer that's grown. But we've seen this with many others, and so that's a kind of story that we have multiple examples of. But we're proud of lots of customers that didn't necessarily get all the recognition. I mean, I can think of a researcher that basically just spent his entire startup package with an advanced instrument of ours and sort of bet his entire career on it. And his name is Emma Kikuchi in the Ohio State University, and he has made that into a successful career, starting out with one of our advanced lattice light sheet microscopes. That's a big bet. Most people don't buy the big expensive piece of equipment to start. They spread it out and start small, and he made that sort of investment. So I don't know, another story is Alexander Sorkin, who he started out as a junior professor when I was a postdoc, and he bought an early instrument of ours, and he's moved on to eventually growing to senior faculty and now long-term department chair at the University of Pittsburgh. He also got us our director of marketing. But many customers have blown us away with what they've achieved.
That's awesome. Too many to list. I guess one of the last questions I had for you, as somebody who, you started in engineering and physics, now kind of turned to biology, and now you're a developer and a manufacturer in a incredibly innovative industry. For any of our listeners who may be out there and thinking about starting their own industry, maybe in biomed or otherwise, is there any advice that you would give them starting out?
Wow, that's an interesting question. So 3i's story is a little unusual. We never took any external funding.
Oh, wow.
So, that means we're still kind of in control of our company.
Yeah.
This much later. And I think there is a real model for startups that is about getting VC and investors and stuff. And I have watched my many friends' companies kind of come and go on those models. And those models are aligned not kind of for a long-term thing. So I guess my advice would be, if you really have a passion for what you're doing and want to do it for a long time, be extremely careful where you get your money.
Yeah, try to do it yourself. Is there anything that you think being entirely wholly owned by, I imagine your co-founder or what have you, a few
employees and stuff.
Yeah. What specific benefits has that given you? Do you think, in terms of maybe how you chose to drive the business over the last 30 years?
I think it gives you the ability to take risks.
There you go.
That may not be allowed if somebody's requiring a next quarter 10%
return. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. I think that's very good advice, actually. I ask that question quite frequently, and I've never gotten that answer, and I think that's a really, really good one. So looking forward into the future for 3i, I know that you guys are doing some AI stuff, some different software. Is there any projects or future goals that you guys might have that you want to share with our listeners?
We're making new kinds of microscopes all the time.
Yeah.
So we are trying to see where biology is going and fill the next kind of niche of a technique that's about to become very popular.
Okay.
And so we have multiple irons in the fire on that front.
You can't disclose. That's okay.
Any more specific than that, but that's the
cool
R&D vision.
Awesome. That's really exciting to hear. Before I let you go, do you want to shout out where our listeners can find you guys?
Oh, absolutely. So check us out on our website at www.intelligent-imaging.com. It's probably the easiest place to find us. We're also on all the social media sites, but the website's probably the one with the richest content.
Awesome. Well,
and
thank you.
Ways to get to us on those.
Cool. Thank you so much, Colin. That was a very interesting conversation. And if you're ever, when you release that next product and it's out in the open, maybe you want to come back on the podcast and discuss it. We would love to have you.
Thanks a lot, Jordan. I really had fun.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.